Morning, everybody. Welcome to Hardin County Commissioners Court. We're here today for a special meeting. This is a public hearing today. It is 9:30 a.m. on July the 30th. All members of the Commissioners Court are present, and this meeting is called to order. Everyone will please rise for the invocation by Commissioner Pelt, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our dear Father, we thank you for being blessed this life. We pray now we'd raise a special prayer for Judge Caraway there in the hospital in Houston. Pray that you just be with him, be with the doctors they treat him, be with Kay and Bart as they wait anxiously upon him. Pray that your will would be done. Pray that you'd be with the court now as we go through this public hearing. Help us to do what is right and just for the county. Give us the wisdom and knowledge to know what is right and just. Forgive us for our sins. Amen.
Amen. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Item number 3 on the agenda is to conduct the second public hearing to receive citizens' comments regarding proposed projects utilizing funds allocated by the Texas General Land Office for Hurricane Harvey, CDBG-DR 4332 disaster recovery. And just so everybody knows, CDBG is Community Development Block Grant, and DR is disaster recovery. Before I introduce Mr. Wabi, everyone should have a white sheet at the top that says public hearing. If anybody does not have one, please raise your hand and we'll get one to you. And there's also, I believe, some comment cards if anybody would like to make a comment. Once Mr. Wabi has provided his presentation, if you'll fill that out and raise your hand, we'll collect that from you and try to make sure that your comment is heard. And if you have a question that we're able to answer, we'll get that to you today. And if not, we'll have a contact number or email address where we can respond to you later. So this time I'd like to introduce Mr. Greg Wabi. He is with MPTX Associates, and he is our grant administrator. He was selected by the court sometime back for all disaster recovery grants, and does an excellent job for Hardin County. We appreciate him. Greg, if you don't mind, just give, you went through this detailed at our first public hearing, and that is available online if anybody would like to watch that, but we only have 30 minutes today. We have our regular meeting that starts at 10. If you could just kind of give us a general summary of the allocations and the eligible activities, and then we'd like to hear any comments from the public and try to answer any questions that they have. Mr. Wabi?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, commissioners. I'm here to talk about the Community Development Block Grant for Disaster Recovery. First thing that's important to note, there's been $11.9 million allocated to Hardin County for CDBG-DR projects. This is round 1 of the funding. We're looking forward to more information about what could be round 2. This funding can be used for a list of eligible activities. I'm going to read those off as follows. Fire protection facilities and equipment, flood control repair and improvements, demolition or rehabilitation of publicly owned commercial or industrial buildings, road and street improvements, neighborhood facilities, community senior centers or shelters, debris removal, water, wastewater or gas system improvements, economic development, public services, acquisition buyout, or match for other federal programs. Those are the eligible activities. The eligible activities must also meet at least one national objective, and they must also include a description of the impact from Hurricane Harvey. They must affirmatively further fair housing standards. They must take into consideration the community's long-term planning objectives, and they must also be spent for at least 70% benefiting low to moderate income households.
Now, Greg, while you're on that line item there, I'd like for you to maybe give us a little more explanation of what the low to moderate income requirements are, and if you could also explain to the court and the citizens that are present what areas of the county meet those requirements.
Yes, sir. Principally benefiting low to moderate income households can be conducted either 2 separate ways. For one, it can be done from an area standpoint. The U.S. Census has defined 5 different census block groups of the county which meet the HUD standards for low to moderate income areas. Another way that it can be met is by defining a certain smaller area by terms of a door-to-door survey to identify a particular neighborhood that's within a portion of the county that can meet the definition of low to moderate income. The other thresholds for the amount of income that a household can take to meet the standard is something that varies based on the household size. Anywhere from 1 person to 12-person household is scored on a sliding scale, depending on the number of people in that particular household. I would also say that there's some definitions that go beyond the boundaries of Hardin County as far as setting what those thresholds are. Hardin County is affected by the Port Arthur and Beaumont metropolitan statistical area, which make it relatively more difficult to get projects qualified in Hardin County due to the discrepancies in typical household income.
We appreciate that explanation. I think that's why we've seen a couple of communities, I believe Rose Hill Acres and the city of Lumberton have conducted these door-to-door surveys, and we anticipate we may have to do some of that as well. One other item I want to bring up, you told us what the total amount that's been allocated to Hardin County. I would like to focus on the $8.5 million that's been allocated for infrastructure, because I believe that is probably the reason most of the people are here today. We do also have $3.388 million that's allocated for acquisitions, and while we do anticipate having some acquisitions, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we intend to use all or a portion of this money as match toward our hazard mitigation grant program. And that was a directive that was given to all of the counties and cities in the affected areas by the governor, was to use this CDBG money as match toward any hazard mitigation grant program funds. So we do have an application out there for acquisitions under HMGP. I think one of those has been, I won't say approved, but it's going through the process where it looks like it will be approved. And we intend to use this 3.388 as matched toward that grant program. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Any left over, we'll still continue to use this for any acquisitions that may be available or desired in the county. And those are voluntary acquisitions, so the county's not going to come through and take anybody's property. That will have to be where a resident or residents have asked the county to be put on the list to be considered for acquisitions. So I think the main discussion that we have here today that we want to make sure that the citizens are aware of, and the court as well, is the infrastructure projects that are top on our list. And those, I believe, are the flood control repair and improvements and the fire protection facilities and equipment. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, with that, I would just point out that we are receiving public comments for both the projects and also the applications as drafted. So with that, I would just encourage any folks from the public that are here today to express their comments and submit those. Deadlines are as follows: July 30th for eligible activities and August 15th on the application. So with that, turn it back over to you, sir, and lead us through the question and answer period.
This public hearing will be online later today, so for anybody that's watching online, you can submit your public comments to this email address. It's cdbg4332@co.hardin.tx.us. You can also submit those in person at 300 West Monroe Street. Attention, Amanda Young. That's Coons, Texas, 77625. And you can also call the Floodplain Administration Office at 409-246-5251. However, we do prefer that all public comments are received in writing. But you can call Amanda and she'll take down any comment that you have. With that said, I'd open it up to any questions or comments by the court. If there are, yes, sir, Commissioner.
When you talk about the application process, can you explain that process and refresh our memory?
Yes,
sir.
sir.
About public comments on the application process.
Yes, sir. The application itself has been drafted. We have an initial, both application for the infrastructure projects and also for acquisition. That has been posted on the county's website, has been pointed out. Comments that come in during the 30-day comment period are, for one, everyone is identified. It will be published in the final application that is submitted to the Texas General Land Office. Each comment that is received is responded to, particularly in terms of its its eligibility. We're looking for input for which projects receive the highest priority from the city's or from the county's point of view. So we encourage that all in all, and we will document that entire sequence as it's submitted to the Texas General Land Office.
And I believe to date we've received about 7 or 8 emails, public comments. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, and I want to emphasize too just how excellent it's been. We are receiving comment from really all segments of the county, and the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. So I just want to, I guess, thank folks from the community. Maybe folks are here today that have actually submitted those comments. I want to just encourage that to continue. It adds momentum to the county's position as we're receiving these funds from the Texas General Land Office. It shows that there's broad community support for this. Yes, sir.
Thank you,
Right.
Mr. Phil.
You mentioned there were 5, I think you said, census tracts that meet this 70% low to mod. Where are those located in Hardin County?
Yes, sir. An important one to begin with is in Saratoga. And I would point out that each of the census block groups that meet the LMI definition, according to HUD, are differing sizes. Okay, the one in Saratoga, it covers a broad area. It's by far the largest of the 5 census block groups that meets the definition. The others are, there's one just on the, in fact 2 on the north side of Kuntz. They are more compact. There's relatively an equal number of people in each census block group, but as areas are more densely populated, the geography of that census block group is more compact. So there's 2 on the north side of Kuntz, another one on the north side of Silsbee, and then a larger one in the far northeastern corner of the county. And so those are the 5 activities within that area, or principally benefiting community members in those census block groups, are projects that will meet the low to moderate income definition.
Northeast, would that be up near the Spurger Fred line?
Yes,
I'll
sir.
be at Candy
Candy
Head
Head.
right there where I'm at. I've got
Okay.
$8 million worth of projects.
I think that's an unpopulated area that you're talking about, very sparsely populated.
Yes,
And
sir.
then there's another area in the Caney Head community that is more populated, that meets the requirements. The other 2 areas that you talked about, North Coons, I believe is gonna be primarily the Honey Island Thicket area.
That's 4. Are they 5 or just 4?
The other one's Saratoga, that's 5.
Okay.
And then you say that on the groups that we're gonna need to do a door-to-door survey on, that would be like the east side of Lumberton, Woodcrest, that area, and that would have to be on the door-to-door survey.
If it turns out that it's required to do a door-to-door, it depends on the projects and the location of the projects that are pursued. So we will see how those results come back and conduct the survey.
And you know what
door-to-door.
project I'm talking about on that?
Yes, sir. If I were to add anything more, is that not all of the funding needs to be spent towards what's called low to moderate income qualifying projects. One thing to point out on that, the 70% threshold for spending applies to the 11.9 million overall. So therefore, if we were to use the entire 3.3 million on the acquisition projects for low to moderate income households, then that's going to, I'm going to say, free up or make more flexible the spending on the infrastructure side. It's kind of a complicated formula. I'd be happy to talk about it at length. We've been discussing these details with county staff on a weekly basis, but overall, the thresholds that need to be met, it is 70%, but we're hoping to create the most flexibility for where those dollars can be spent, and of course, in keeping with the overall initiative, which is to benefit low to moderate income households first.
Greg, just to follow up, I know that we can issue a request for modification for that 70% to HUD. Do you anticipate we'll do that?
That is a decision that comes above my pay grade, but I will say this. I've identified at least 5 very firm and logical arguments on why Hardin County should receive some flexibility or relief from that 70% requirement. When it comes to taking that up and the channels of which such a request is handled, that's something that we would need to research, find out who to voice those observations or concerns to, and how to conduct that. But in my opinion, the Hardin County has at least 5 strong arguments on why that should be relaxed or made more flexible. Yes. I'd be happy to share that with you too if you're interested.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Greg. Does anybody have a comment card? If so, Amanda will pick that up from you. You can go ahead and read them. Thank you.
What criteria triggers or contributes to the decision to do a door-to-door survey?
I think Greg just kind of went over that with us, and basically it just depends on the type of project. If we're going to do a type of project in a certain area that maybe doesn't meet the U.S. Census block, and if the project is not going to be at least 70% towards LMI, if more than let's say it was a 50-50, then there would be a door-to-door survey. I know that one such area that's been talked about is the Cooks Lake Road area in Lumberton. If there's a project there that I know Commissioner Roberts is familiar with, and if we're able to make that part of our application either in round 1 or round 2, then I know there's been talk about having to do a door-to-door survey there, and that we felt like that area would meet the LMI requirement.
Second one, how are infrastructure projects prioritized?
If I could take that.
Yes.
The projects themselves that make it into the application are not necessarily prioritized in the order. They appear in essentially a random order for the application that goes into the Texas General Land Office. When it comes to which projects make it onto the application, that's another subject. We have limits to the amount of funding that's available. $8.5 million is a significant sum, but it's not an unlimited amount of funds. So there are some decisions that need to be made on that. The second main decision is factoring for which projects will meet that LMI definition and which won't, so that we make sure that we meet the overall 70% threshold for the combined applications.
Thank you, Greg.
Will any of the CDBG monies be used for buyouts to remove residential areas from the floodplains?
That is on a voluntary basis. So anybody who's applied for to be a part of the buyout program, those will be evaluated. Explain how if it's on the HMGP, there's a match, and if the county doesn't have enough to make that match, then let's just say somebody may have a house that's worth $100,000, we may only get $75,000, so the homeowner would end up having to make up, or basically they take a loss of $25,000 if that's what the value of the home is. Now, if we have enough money to help make that match from grant sources, and if that's allowed, which as we've been told right now, it is allowed to use the CDBG DR money as match on the HMGP program, then we would, that's our plan, is to use that money to match those HMGP grant projects. And Greg, if I say anything wrong, please correct me. I'm flying off the cuff here sometimes.
If I could add something to
Sure.
that, for the CDBG acquisition/buyout program, it's actually 2 separate things. And at this time, and the way that the county's CDBG acquisition project application is currently framed, it's one that would allow the county to ultimately have the option to either rebuild on that property or sell it for future development. Okay, that is something that's unique to the CDBG program. It's defined as acquisition project. Okay, and there are important distinctions between that and the buyout project. The main thrust of the county's current application is to maintain the maximum flexibility for future use of the property going forward, and so that's the way it's currently framed. I just wanted to explain those 2 definitions.
Let me just say, that's our goal and desire, is to do acquisitions, but the latest guidance that I've seen from the GLO is if we use any of the acquisition buyout money as match on the HMGP program, then we can only use the rest of the GLO money on buyouts. They won't let you mix and match. So you either have to decide acquisition or buyout. And again, if we use any of the 3.3 or nearly 3.4 million to match the hazard mitigation grant program buyouts, then any of the remaining money that's left over of the 3.4 would have to be used to buy out. We couldn't use it for acquisitions. I have tried to get them to change that, and last I heard was about 2 months ago. They're still looking at it, and they may make that decision, but as of today, that's still the guidance that we have. Any others, Amanda?
Yes.
Okay.
When is round 2 planning starting?
Have we heard any?
We just got an email about the mitigation funds.
Mhm.
We still have not received a mod or anything like that from the
Are
Regional
we still
Planning
waiting on the
Commission.
Federal Register to come out?
We are waiting on the definition of mitigation from.
The last thing
DLO.
I saw said that would probably come out sometime in September.
Correct.
Okay.
And then
So
it's
as
still
soon
a process.
as soon as we
after
see what the allocation is and what the federal government defines, just as they did in round 1, then we'll start planning for round 2. And I suspect any projects that we've already planned for round 1 that don't get accepted, or there's not enough money to fund those, then those will carry over into round 2.
Who from Hardin County is attending the first Texas Water Development Board hearing coming up in 1 week in Orange, Texas?
You are.
That would be me. I'll be there. Supportive comments for the proposal. How were we supposed to know about the first public hearing to have input into the project?
The first public hearing that we held,
Yes.
it was put in the newspaper. All of our legal notices are in the Silsby Bee. However, we only had to have one public hearing, but we received a few complaints that we didn't get the word out, to everybody in time, and so that's why we were having this second one. First of all, we didn't have a quorum for the first meeting. We did find out after we set the public hearing, the second public hearing, that we did not have to have a quorum, but that is the reason we set this second public hearing, is to try to get more notice out to the citizens.
Read
So
that
this is just a
question again.
repeat.
How were we supposed to know about the first public hearing to have input into the project?
Well, I hadn't heard any input from this is a chance. Who's got input?
Don't we also post that on our website?
Yes, it's on the website.
We actually have gone above and beyond. We are not actually supposed to or have
Required.
to, that's the word, required to have a public hearing. We are required to post the application for 30 days and have a 30-day comment period, but we've gone above and beyond, so the GLO said that we can use all of these public hearings and anything that we've done towards our application.
But since a lot of people don't get to Silsby Bee, and we don't have a newspaper of real general circulation in Hardin County, the best place is to keep up with our website,
Correct.
because everything's posted on our website.
Right, and I think Emergency Management also posted it on their Facebook page, and so did I.
Okay, one more. As I recall, part of the proposal list to fund a match for an LMVA proposed project, what is that project? We don't have any projects for the LMVA at this time.
No.
When is round 2? We already talked
Yeah,
about that.
we're still waiting on the Federal Register, and the last information, which was just a couple of days ago, said that they're hoping that we'll see that in mid-September.
How can we get info on round 2? You can go to the GLO website.
Right, and we'll do the same, we'll have to do the same process for round 2 that we did this time, and we'll be putting that in. The Silsby Bee is our legal publication. We'll post it there, but it'll also be on our website and on the Emergency Management Facebook page.
And will the county be submitting an application for round 2?
Yes, absolutely. We've applied for every grant that comes our way. We absolutely know that some of the projects that we need to do are going to require some hefty match that this county cannot afford. However, there are some hopes, I guess, some high hopes that the state is going to help us on some of that match, and so we're applying for every grant that comes our way. And if we get approved and we're unable to make the match, then we'll have to decide at that time, you know, whether or not to reject the, signing the subrecipient agreement. But that has not happened yet, and hope that it doesn't happen. Anybody else have a comment card?
Can I just ask a question?
Sure, come up to the podium and state your name.
My name is Cindy Bates.
Yes, ma'am.
What does the low income have to do with the priority of projects in the county? Like, if someone who is in a higher income level in the state or in the county
Right.
compared to someone who does not, but the people who are in the county and have a more important project that's more, you know, it's viable for that part of the county, why are the
You're
funds
saying exactly what we've
allocated?
been saying for months. It doesn't make sense, but the federal government specifies that we have to spend at least 70% of the money in low to moderate income areas. And those are defined by census blocks. Now, as Mr. Wabi said, they are going to allow us to do our own surveys in certain areas. So just for instance, the Cooks Lake Road area, we all feel like that area will meet the LMI requirements, so they will allow us to do door-to-door surveys in the area where we're talking about putting or elevating that bridge. Our discussions all along with the Texas General Land Office and the Governor's Office, and they agree with us, they have gone to bat for us with the federal government, but it hasn't come through, is that the flooding didn't occur only in LMI areas. In fact, most of the areas, it was very non-LMI areas, at least in Hardin County. And so it's a very big hindrance to us, but that is the rules and the law that we have to go by at this time.
Okay.
So doesn't have anything to do with priority. It has to do with if we're not going to spend the money in those areas, they are not going to approve the project.
Okay.
And it's actually coming down from HUD.
Right.
Once they do the law and do the federal registry, you have a lot of housing advocacy groups that have special interests. And so from the time they start debating that bill, they start inserting their comments, they start lobbying different senators and Congress members in order to do that. My understanding, it's usually higher than 70%, isn't it? And they actually lowered it, rolling it out, but it's usually 80 to 90%, 80-20.
Well, what you find out is that anytime Congress appropriates funds, and these funds go to HUD, then you have a problem, because hurricanes and disasters don't discriminate against whether the person is rich or poor. But once it goes to HUD, they do. Their objective is all funds possible to go to low to mod income. And we've been fighting that battle ever since I've been on the court, 23 years, and we haven't gotten anywhere. They've set the rules that GLO will go by. And it doesn't make sense, it never has made sense, because whether you're talking about drainage or things like this, they benefit a lot of different income levels. But they insist that everything possible go to low to mod. What they're trying to do basically is force you to take most money towards housing and redistribution of income into areas like Port Arthur and things like this. That's their objective.
Okay.
Well, can I add, I'm gonna add, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but a lot of the things that we're gonna be able to do in that sector is gonna have a effect on the upper sides of that, because everything, and this is the way I look at it, everything drains to Lumberton. So it's gotta go through Lumberton. So if we get projects at the south end of Lumberton or wherever, it's gonna help the north end of Lumberton. Does that make sense?
It
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, so as far as, like I said, priority, we're gonna take them as we go, I'm sure.
I believe that this detention pond project in the Saratoga area, and we don't have a specifically defined area, but I think that will be a large help to anyone that lives along the Pine Island Bow.
Definitely.
And that falls into that LMI area, so I believe that will be one of the projects that, in my hopes, that will be selected by the GLO.
Give the Corps of Engineers, but.
That's the,
Yeah, we've got the other end of that too, but.
Okay.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bates.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Johnny Ranklow.
Anybody else?
I move adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Pelt and a second by Commissioner Kirkendall to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
5 minutes.
5 minutes, we'll begin our regular meeting.
Okay.